Hello and welcome to Red Skies Prep Screen here on the Caustic Worm channel. The last stream is what my channel is actually going to be switching to at some point here, but for now I'm Caustic Worm, otherwise known as Pete. I run a couple of games on for a few different people via using Foundry and mostly virtual, especially since the pandemic has come on. But I've been running games for about 20 years now, and this current game is currently running two campaigns. One's called Red Skies, and one is called Years of Vengeance, which we'll do a prep for at some point here in the future. For the last year, and it's in my own world called Era. However, the particular place that they're playing in is called Nyarvine, which we'll get to in yet a different set of videos. But this particular one is all about prepping for the next session of my Red Skies campaign, which I run for 4 friends and 3 of my kids. So it's a total group of 7. It's currently been on episode, we were going on to episode 21, pardon me. And since I haven't done one of these in a long time, in fact the last one I did was even on the other campaign, kind of go over a little bit about what this campaign is, where it's at, and where it's going. Originally I ran a whole bunch of campaigns in Pathfinder and the Pathfinder world of Galarian. I still use D&D 5e, which I'm using for this campaign as well. But in the I found a world. Let me start over again. About a year and a half ago, I was going through some of my old hard drive files and things like that, and found a whole bunch of notes and things for a world I started making 20 some odd years ago when I lived in California. It was a world based on floating islands in the sky. There was no ground below it, and sky ships and that sort of stuff, but still with a medieval flair, medieval feel to it, but some high magic to it as well as that. So I took that, I had clearly shelved it for many years since I found it. Took that world, started reworking it a little bit, knowing what I know now, being a little more modern about things and that sort of stuff, and got it to a point where I was like, all right, let's start running games in it. And instead of using Pathfinder Adventure Paths or something like that, I started creating my own campaigns in my own adventures. This particular one, Red Skies, is all about potentially being pirates, privateers, being on the high seas, that sort of stuff, eventually leading into sky ships and that sort of things for the characters. Now, currently they are pressed into being pirates on a ship. Originally, at the very beginning of the campaign, they shipwrecked onto an island where they discovered a whole bunch of natives, two different native villages. One was kidnapping the members of the other village and sacrificing them to some strange god. They ended up helping out these natives, partially because their captain of their ship got captured, and partially because they didn't want to get themselves captured. And from there, ended up getting into some ruins that were built next to where the violent village was at. And ended up finding out that there was a portal to some strange plane that was open that they ended up closing, getting rid of the shaman who had opened it in the first place at the same time, which freed up the villagers from some kind of mind control that they had, and made them less violent towards everybody. So from there, they then had found a pirate cove on this island where pirates had been storing some of their equipment and things of that nature, and those pirates came back, deciding to throw in their lot with the pirates. They sort of got press ganged onto the ship, where they learned a bit of piracy, kind of went around the Sea of Tears, which is where this place is set, and we'll look at that here in a second, and eventually took part in their first raid. That was the last session, or the last technically session and a half, where they took part in their first raid on a ship called the Sea Spray. The ship they were on is called the Defiant, run by Captain Mad Dog. And so at the end of last session, they had captured the ship, and Mad Dog was sending his boatswain on as a temporary captain to pick a skeleton crew to take that ship to the pirate city of Flotsam, or pirate town, whatever you want to call it, of Flotsam, to be retrofitted so it could be, be added to Mad Dog's fleet. Now, the boatswain picked the characters because he absolutely hates them. As part of a previous adventure, previous, one of his favorites had murdered somebody on the ship and had pinned it on one of the characters' friends. They figured out who it was and got that person keel-hauled for it, and so now he's got even more murderous intent in his mind. Now, if you are one of my players and want to keep some mystery in this, you should stop watching now, so that as I start to go over what's going to be the plot for the next episode or the next couple of episodes, depending on how quickly they move through it, you should probably stop watching. So I'll give you a few seconds for that, and then we will start on going on to the next thing. So, for those of you who are still here, what's going on in the campaign? So I probably will do a video at some point about what this campaign is about and what the direction is and where I'm going to go with it. But this campaign came out of an idea I had, which is sometimes when I sit down and thinking about different campaigns, I start to think about, well, what monsters haven't I used before in a long time, or haven't used ever, or haven't used in a long time, or what would be interesting, or that sort of stuff. And the players themselves had also made a request that, hey, the next campaign be pirate based. So piracy tends to and the open sea and stuff like that tends to lead to a lot of strange sea monsters and things of that nature. So I decided to make the big bad of this campaign sort of an old one, or a Cthulhu style monster creature that is trying to enter into the universe and establish itself there and take over, and who knows what the minds of the old ones are. They're it's very alien to all of us, but that's their intent right now. The monster in question we will save for a different video, but that sort of set up the beginning arc of the campaign. I like to set up where the campaign is going to go in the first arc, and so that was sort of the whole portal. The portal leads to that sort of thing. They saw a creature of nightmare, that sort of stuff, as they were trying to close it, that sort of thing. So we kind of established sort of that theme, but at the same time, with this current arc that we're on, we've established a theme of piracies and the high seas and sailing around the Sea of Tears. As we're moving forward into the next arc, so in theory, this next episode that we're about to prep for should be the final one of the current arc, and after that, they should have a ship and should be able to move on and do their own things around the Sea of Tears, even around the entire Nyarvine floating island. And give me one moment and we'll get to that in a second. So what we're leading into with this current arc is them getting away from the pirates and getting a ship. So we've kind of set that up going into this point where they've raided the Sea Spray, they've taken it over. Now the boatswain's going to take it to Flotsam, but he has actually selected these guys because he's going to get them killed in some fashion. Whether it's through his own crew attacking them, and him claiming they were doing mutiny, or whether it is what he's really thinking of doing, which is there is a spot in the wall, and let's bring up the map now of the Sea of Tears. So first of all, here's the Nyarvine archipelago. It is a floating island. So the floating island is this entire thing is one big floating island, and there are land masses on top of it. So as you can see, 500 miles is, it's about 500 miles across this whole thing. So this thing is rather large, and if you get to the edge, you can fall off. This is all air here, and there are other floating islands. I call them eyres, floating eyres or aeries, or however you want to put, whatever you want to call them, below this island and above it. There's an island up here that's pretty big. There's some above this particular spot. So this is the world that we're working with. I will be doing a series of streams and stuff where we kind of go through it and continue to add more to the lore and things of that nature. Those are to come soon. So this is kind of the world they're living in. Some of them come from Kelavine here. Most of them, though, have come from the Sea of Tears in here. So Sea of Tears is this particular map. Here we go. So this is all the Sea of Tears. We've come down into this area. And what you can see on this map is there's a few places we've kind of outlined, which is Wensmar, Port Hope, Calastria, and Emerdal, and Cairmergal. So the ship that they were on started here in Cairmergal. All of them, not all of them got on there, but half of the group got on there. A couple got on here in Wensmar. The last got on in Port Hope. And then when they came around trying to get to Calastria, their ship got blown off course in a storm and ended up crashing here on this island right here, where they spent the last about a month. One moment. So they've now got off with a pirate ship. The pirate ship actually came all the way back down here, all the way to this set of caves right here called the Gallenbeer Caves, where the guy met somebody. They're not sure who or what, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the main campaign, when I bring that and do a stream on that. And then the ship came back up all the way up to here. So they're technically right here at the beginning of the episode that's going to start tomorrow, the session that's starting tomorrow. So they're all the way up here where they've just gotten a new ship, and the intent is for this ship to be taken to Flotsam. Flotsam is in these islands here. These are called the Spine Keys. And Flotsam is somewhere in here. Most people don't know where it is, but the pirates do. Now, this section right here is called the Wall. Now, this map doesn't show everything on here, but through much of this area, it's very, very narrow. And it's very narrow there because at one point, most of this area was all land. But about 5,000 years ago, some calamity happened which caused this sea to become and actually sent the entire Nyravine Hire into a dark time for about 2,000 years, 2 to 2,500 years. So that's something we'll talk about when we do those sorts of things. But so that leads us to the sea kind of then came out of that, and then this is sort of where they're at. So, but because of that, there's a lot of spots in here where it's rather shallow, and one of them happens to be a whole series of shoals and reefs and islands right through here, right through the middle of it. So there's only a few ways through here, and so pirates find it pretty easy prey in here as long as no one's actually guarding the ship or things like that, or it's not a fast ship, trade ship that's going through. But the pirates also know a few secret ways through, so that they can avoid being attacked by the Navy or something like that. One of those spots happens to be a good way through because there is a small island near there, which is the home to a siren, for lack of a better, that's what it is. So pirates know, put some stuff in their ears, they won't hear the call of the siren, sound their way through, and they'll get through pretty quickly and easily. So that is where the boatswain is going to take this ship. He's going to go through at that point and not tell the players that they should cover their ears, hoping that they will be lured by the siren's call, dive into the water, and eventually either drowned or make it to her and be eaten by her. So that's the intent of what he's going to do. Now, I'm all about player agency and that sort of stuff, so the players could very well do something before that, but we'll kind of go over that as we go through the thing. So I tend to use World Anvil. So I'm showing you Foundry VTT because that's where I do most of my playing, so that's where a bunch of maps are at. But my actual campaign is here on World Anvil. So, and this particular campaign, strangely enough, I run for two different groups. One of them is a group at work, which I don't post anything because we tend to talk about work things there, and that's there's some NDA stuff with that. But while we're playing, but the other one is, like I said, for 4 friends and a kid, or my kids. So that's the one we're going to talk about tonight. That game plays on Tuesday nights. For about 3 to 3.5 hours, occasionally 4 hours. So the last episode, if we look at this, was called. Accidentally hit something twice. Oh God! It is not doing very well for me right now. So the last one was an episode called Mutiny. Now, in the end, when I made the prep, I thought I called it Mutiny because I thought we'd get to the mutiny, but no, we basically just got done with the Battle of the Sea Spray. So, so the first thing I usually do when I'm prepping for the next session is I go to the last one, and first thing I do is I'm actually going to copy everything out of this one, because for a couple of reasons. One, it's got some notes for what I was expecting might happen, so keep them as we go through. And second one is that I need to update the episode title to actually match what really happened. I don't necessarily go back and remove anything that didn't happen from the plot. That doesn't make any sense. But if I've decided that we didn't get as far, or the name of it should change, that's something I do. So I do that. This is now all updated, and then I typically go and start the next one. So I expect the next episode to be entitled Mutiny. Of course, if I keep on hitting the wrong button as we try to do this, this is not going to work very well. So here we go. This one's episode 21. We're going to call that one Mutiny, because it should end up in a mutiny of some sort, whether it's forced by the botswain or whether they decide to do it before they even get to the Siren's place. Either way, I expect that there will be a fight. So I have my own calendar. So the way I set this up is I usually kind of give a summary of what I'm going to do, some more detail about the summary is basically what I might put in a blurb for the elevator kind of pitch. A little more detail about, you know, what I expect to happen in the adventure or in the session. Adventures tend to take more than 2 or 3 sessions for me. And then kind of go through the events of what's going on. So in this particular one, this one actually starts in the morning of the 24th. And they've finished the attack on the Sea Spray, having taken the Sea Spray, the botswain, the adventurers in tow, head to Flotsam to refit the ship. So that's the intent, and that's where we're kind of starting at here. So from a detail standpoint, a lot of the stuff is still here. So at this point in time, they've got the vessel, and they're going to take that vessel and take it to the Spine Keys, which were Flotsam is. Now, one thing that I haven't discovered yet is that there was a guy on there called what did they call him? Daxios, and he was an artificer who's been working on a different way of making skyships. So in this campaign world, skyships utilize a mineral called beryllium, which you would think would be heavily found inside of the various Ires, because clearly that should be what's making them float. But it doesn't take a lot of it to make these islands work. And to be quite fair, the islands aren't necessarily floating because of the beryllium. So they're floating for different reasons, which we'll get into in game world design. So beryllium is actually kind of scarce, and so he's been trying to figure out a different way of doing that, using anti-gravity and that sort of stuff. So inside the ship, he's actually hidden his notebook. While the attack was going on, he hid his notebook. So there is a spot in the ship where he was at, which was in the lower hold. He had got his own little quarters, where if players tend to look around at some point, they will potentially find his notebook and all of his notes about his experiments for this, which potentially leads to some stuff in a place called Tinkertown, which is where he's from. At the same time, they may not find it in this episode, so it's kind of more of a future kind of seed for future things. But the main thrust of this thing is that Scabs, who's the boatswain, is going to take the skeleton crew. He wants revenge on the players, so he chooses the adventurers and heads towards the Silent Shoals. It's a shallows on the northern side of the wall, where only a few pirates know lives a siren, as he wishes the adventurers to meet their doom without getting any blood on his hands. So that's really the detail of it. There's not much more to it than that. The intent of this episode in this session is to get them to the shoals, start the encounter with the siren, and then have them fight, Scabs and his merry band of crew that he or his pirate crew that he picked. So that starts on the 24th. So, or the 25th. Yeah, actually, it's the 25th. Because we already did these two things. They had a party after the end of extra rum and stuff and bought some of their things. So this should be starting on the 25th. So I don't have to write a bunch here because I already have it. The sea spray heads towards the wall. Scabs gives the adventurers the worst jobs he can and puts his cronies in positions of power. Typical sort of thing. The crew, discipline the adventurers for minor offenses in general, make lives pretty miserable. Now, it takes about a day and a half to get to the well, it takes about 2 days to get to the wall from where they're currently at, because they're tacking into the wind. It's all westerlies in this particular area. Not a lot of hurricanes or anything like that, although there are some strange storms. All right. So on the 26th, there's a couple of people that they became friendly with also got pulled onto the skeleton crew. One of them is by the name of True, and I should have done this while I was thinking about it. Let me private this and publish it, and then we'll view it real quick because I want to view. Oh, I forgot one thing. So True and Blinby are a couple of people who have sort of like the players. Let me set this up real quick. The parent plot of this is the Defiant, which is the name of the pirate ship. I kind of set things up as overarching plots, which is the arc, and then from there I do individual episodes or individual session articles. So in this case, bring up to this one. R32 is my other guys. So for this particular thing, so there's True Defira. She is a priest of Veseda, which is a lesser goddess of storm and strife. And Blinby Zizzleton, who's a gnome. She absolutely hates Scabs, and Scabs doesn't like her either. So those two got pulled on as well, along with most of the guys down here. Galt Lochner, Mare Elier is the one that is the person that they got caught who did murder one of the guys on there and who's been killed all. But Sefu, Trek, Khan, Lise, they're all part of the squad, as well as the players. Two members from the crew from their previous ship that was on part of the Castaways called Rat and actually just Rat, so just one. Rat is a 12-year-old kid, and sort of comic relief every so often. Well, Sand is more comic relief than him, but you get the picture. And so on the about a day and a half in, oops, that was not what I meant to bring up. About a day and a half in, True, who I brought up Hero Forge because we're going to have to make a picture for her, I haven't yet, comes by and she has overheard, it's going to mention, if they haven't already figured this out, which I think they have, but even if they haven't, she's going to mention that she's overheard them talking about the shoals. I was originally going to call this the Boneyard, and dropping off the troublesome lot when they get there. I mean, and then by the 27th, originally when I was doing this, I had my dates wrong. Either they have started a mutiny or they're at the shoals, the Silent Shoals. Now, the reason why they're called the Silent Shoals isn't because they're silent, but because you need to be silent and you need to get your ears plugged. So the morning of the 27th reveals that the sea spray has reached the Silent Shoals, and it's known for a bunch of shipwrecks on various shoals and reefs near the wall. Scabs orders the ships into the shoals and then expects the adventurers to navigate. So one of the adventurers, Eyeless, is a sailor, or is a sorcerer, a storm sorcerer, and he had sort of been starting to learn how to become a sailmaster from the sailmaster that was on the Defiant, who was also a storm sorcerer. So the two of them started getting together. So Scabs is going to expect the adventurers to do the navigation through the shoals, even though they've never done such a thing. And the intent here is that either A, he's going to get them, they're going to ram the ship into something, and we'll do some DC checks to see whether or not they do, or they're going to get far enough in that they will start to hear the voice of the siren. Now, this all presupposes that the previous 2 days, adventurers don't decide to do a mutiny themselves. They may do that. I don't know. So when we get down through into here, I'll probably be doing an alternate possibilities here in this particular thing, but we'll see what happens. All right, so the adventurers can find their way through the shoals by utilizing a sounder. So they basically need to do sort of a wisdom water vehicle check. So if they have proficiency water vehicles, they can add proficiency to the wisdom check, and then they gotta do this. That gives them an hour, and it takes about 4 of these rolls to get through the shoals through here. If they were to go south further, there are actually some places through that they can get through without any of these problems, but this just happens to be the way they're going because of their captain. Now, as they start to do this, all of the people in the know start putting stuff in their ears. So a DC 13 perception check or passive perception will notice that people are starting to do some mess with their ears and things like that, and so that will start giving the adventurers a clue that something odd is going on or is expected to happen. In this case, at least 2 players I know have at least a 13 passive perception, so people will notice. Let's see here. After the first hour of their navigation, so once they get through 1 hour of navigation, that's when the first start of the sound of the song, the siren song, starts to happen. So they need to make a wisdom saving throw to avoid the song, and if they fail a DC 12 wisdom saving throw, they become fixated on the song, and they basically are going to start trying to go towards the sound. And again, players will notice if somebody fails it. They will notice that they start going to the edge, and a few people will start jumping over the edge into the water. I'm going to have some of the crew that is sort of indifferent in the middle not know about this, because some of the crew is actually made up of the previous Sea Spray crew that got press ganged in themselves. So some of those guys will become part of the red shirts that get thrown over the side, so the adventurers can understand something's going on. As the ship continues forward, the wisdom saving throw increases, and to a point where either they have to figure out they can put stuff in their ears, or they all go in and, we get a TPK and start over again with a new campaign. It could happen. I don't expect it to happen. I expect that at some point they will figure this out pretty quickly. At that point, they either stuff stuff in their ears, or they stop the ship so they don't go any closer. If they stop the ship, then Scabs is going to demand that they continue, and if they don't, then he accuses them of mutiny, and a fight begins. And it's the reason why we want to call this the mutiny episode. All right. Once the adventurers have defeated Scabs and his crew, they fight to the death. They have they're pirates. They don't care. They will then have a ship. It's not like somebody's gonna come after it. The command crew of the Sea Spray is still on the Defiant. They're gonna probably get ransomed or killed, one or the other, by Mad Dog. And so these guys have a ship at that point. They need to decide what they want to do with it. First, they'll have to navigate back out of the shoals in some way. They're either all the way through or out of it. And then they sort of either need to refit the ship. So, it still says the Sea Spray on the side. So if they want to keep the ship, they have to do something to make it less noticeable and make it obvious that it's not a stolen ship. They do have some money for that, and so they'll be able to do that. So I expect the mutiny and the initial part of this and the mutiny to take most of the episode, because I expected it to take about 2.5-3 hours to do the Sea Spray fight, and it ended up taking almost half of one session and almost all of the next session. So it usually takes these guys a while to get through a fight. Unfortunately, they're just not necessarily. They like to think things through a lot and do a lot of tactics and things like that sometimes, which, whatever. So I've also made a note in here. So this is basically everything I need to run this adventure at this point, to run this session. There's not much more I need to do, just because there's probably going to be a fight. Fights usually take a couple hours, hour and a half to a couple of hours, depending on how many people there are. It's going to take them at least an hour and a half. It's going to probably take at least an hour for us to get to that point. And there's a few other things I'm going to do that are character plot driven. Like, for instance, last time Marcus noticed that there was a strange tentacle tattoo on Blinby. He hasn't approached her about it or anything like that, but Marcus knows that there is an organization called the Kraken, which is a decentralized set of smugglers. Basically, they work in small cells at each of at various places around the Sea of Tears. So there's some at Emerdal, there's some at Port Hope, there's some in Ciar Magál. Any place where trying to smuggle something in becomes something you have to do if you're a pirate or something like that, and you want to make a little extra money. So there's several of these cells on, but they're sort of decentralized. Like they're level based in the sense that the cell in Ciar Magál doesn't really know who is the Kraken in Port Hope. They just don't know. They don't need to know. They just need to know that here is a contact, here is a set of people that they do know that will come in, and they need to help them, shuffle gear around or cargo around. Now, this whole thing, the Kraken, was all set up by the captain's table. So the captain's table is sort of the pirate nobility, the pirate leadership is probably the best way to do it. So the pirates do have rules to some extent, and they are led by a group of pirates, a group of the most strongest captains, who all sit at the captain's table. And so the captain's table set up the Kraken so that they could more easily fence their stolen goods and things of that nature. So that will become a bigger thing as the campaign goes on, but there's, sort of the seeds of that with the Marcus character knowing about this thing because his surrogate mother, Sarah, was a member of it. So he knows a little bit about it. But I haven't, the tattoo that he saw on Sarah is different from the tattoo that's on Blinby, but they both are sort of tentacle and squid or it's not squid, octopus related. So he'll figure it out at some point. And so then they'll probably have a discussion. And Blinby's not going to really tell him about it, other than unless she gets pressed on it, in which case then it comes out that she was part of the Kraken cell at T-Rex Landing until she, decided to go into pirating. She just was tired of doing the smuggling bit. All right, so that's all that we got here. Now, what else could happen? So here's where I kind of like to put in some other possibilities, just because it's very possible that alternate possibilities. I can't spell. And you get to see me not spell. So first one would be clearly players mutiny before the shoals. Easily enough, could definitely happen. And if it does, that's fine. Then we kick it off from there. I mean, if they mutiny and win before there, then we're all set. Then they get the ship, and instead of going through the shoals and dealing with that, they go further south. They talk with Blinby and True, and either they head back to T-Rex Landing or Escala or a few other places that are on this side of the wall, or they go through and head to Calastria or a few other places. So Marcus knows that Sarah could help him because she's one of the dockmasters at Ciar Magál, so I'm sure she could help him. Blinby knows about T-Rex Landing. They went through Escala on the way up to dealing with Sea Spray in the first place. They know that place is kind of lawless and probably could deal with stuff. The one thing they probably won't be able to do is go to Flotsam. Showing up with no known pirates at Flotsam. In fact, none of them even know where Flotsam is, so it kind of reduces the probability. Now, that being said, at the very beginning of the whole game, when the ship when Aaron was first talking with Captain Adara, who was the captain of the Maiden's Folly, the ship they crashed, he noticed some stuff on a chart that sort of was odd. He didn't know what it was, but that actually is a chart that shows the location of Flotsam, and they do have that actual chart. So we'll see what happens there. So that's one possibility. They just mutiny you before the shoals. Another possibility is some of the players head to the Siren while the others don't. So in this one, this one's kind of like, hey, let's or not even some of the players. Let's say True and Blimby and Rat become enamored by the Siren and jump over the side and start going to the Siren. The mutiny happens and it finishes and they win. Well, they still have these three that headed towards the Siren Island. So do the players go after that? Do they not? That's a good question. I don't expect that I'll have to. If that happens, I don't expect that I'll have to have a map for that this particular evening, but I should plan for it just in case. So like I said, I expect most of this to take through, and then we'll see what the fight and things like that will probably take up most of the time. So if this happens, this will probably lengthen this arc just a little bit into the next session, and we'll deal with that in the next session. Another possibility, TPK. It could happen. I mean, I don't think it will. The amount of pirates that there are on the ship versus the number of players there are, the players also just leveled up to level 4. So I don't think that this will be too difficult of a thing for them to do. They're kind of also set up. There is a little bit of a... They're kind of also set up to win. The first mate of the Defiant absolutely hated Scabs. So she has kind of forced the issue by making him take certain people that they don't know about. Like the fact that True and Blimby are on the ship is because of Red, not because Scabs wanted them. Scabs actually just wanted the adventurers, and that was it. And he didn't want anybody else. He didn't want Rat, he didn't want True, he didn't want Blimby. So, you know, they're now, instead of just being 7, they're a group of 10. There's only about 9 or 10 other people on the ship. So it's a pretty even fight. I fully expect that they're going to win. This shouldn't be a difficult thing for them, but it could happen. If they all fail their wisdom saving throws, more than likely TPK, and then we have to discuss things. That's basically it for this. Now there's a few things that I haven't done yet, which we're gonna. So let me do a couple things and set this up for navigation in here. This is all kind of just me making it easier for me to move around through my plots and things like that. So at this point in time, we kind of have done that. Let's take a look at view. I call them episodes, but they're sessions. Session 21, Mutiny. They're gonna have the ship. They're gonna be going. So let's kind of take a quick look at that on the map. They're gonna be coming from here. They're gonna be coming around this. So this has some shoals here. This is called the Rim, or no, the Arch. And so they're gonna come around here, and the place where the shoals is at is gonna be right in here. So they're gonna try to be coming through here and then south and out. So it takes them about a day to get to here, a second day to get to here, and so at the morning of the 27th is when they start going through here. So, and this actually, if you were to look at this is an actual tile that I move around so they know where they're at on the map for the game. Now, what's missing here? Well, what's missing is that I don't necessarily have, I do these things as chapters. In the sense of pirates, I don't have True and Blimby set up as actual characters yet. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to move into the Foundry portion of this. So now I've kind of got what's going to happen tomorrow. Actually, there was other thing I was going to talk about, so let's come back to this. I forgot to talk about this, which is once they have a ship, we head into the next arc. And the next arc is going to be, in fact, the next 10 levels of arcs are going to be more about what the players want to do for their characters. So this particular, the other reason for this particular campaign is that these groups have never done true sandbox games. And so I wanted to give them sort of a sandbox campaign to play around with. So the first adventure, the first arc with the being castaways on an island. It was a relatively decently sized island, but not super huge. Like they could cross it in a day, like all the way across from one side to the other in a day, easily in a day, probably, yeah, in about a day. And I wanted, so during that part, it was sort of a mini sandbox. Like they were consigned to the island, but they could do whatever they wanted in the island. And I just kind of threw in events, and when events reached a certain point where it became like, hey, we gotta, now the adventurers need to do a particular thing or something's going to happen. Like there was a time clock. Once they discovered the captain was in the enemy village, and then they learned that from the nice Malaz that this seemed to be happening every 2 weeks, and that the next one was going to happen in a week, the next sacrifice. Then it became sort of a race against time. So that at that point they started to have to move in a particular direction. So I kind of limited the scope of the sandbox, but still allowed them to do the sandbox. In fact, if you were to look at the two different adventure groups that went through it, they did completely different ways of going around the island and doing things. So it worked out well in that sense. This particular arc that we're working on now, that we're trying to finish up here, is more linear, mostly because once they were done with the stuff on the island, I needed a way to get them off and get them to a ship. So while there is some player agencies here, and I will say that there definitely is, because my Tuesday night group definitely is on the pirate ship and is now going to go down this. The group, during the work group, they killed the landing party from the pirate ship and are still on the island currently in this arc. So still agency, still player agency, still can do things. That's why I did that. This particular this is why I did the alternate possibilities thing in here, because you never know what the players might do. Sometimes they do crazy things. So that's where we're at with that. Now, so what I was talking about here is that sort of the next arc after this one for the two groups, for the Tuesday night group, I suspect, well, clearly they're going to have to go deal with the ship being hot, so to speak. But I suspect that they're going to continue on to Emerdal, Calastria and Emerdal. That was originally what the original route of the Maiden's Folly was going to be. And there is one player that really needs to get to Emerdal because he's being hunted by the Order of the Inquisition, a secretive order that is part of the Chosen of Seer. The Chosen of Seer are the sort of the high priests of the god Seer, which is considered the only legal god in the Seerly Kingdom. That Inquisition is literally trying to exterminate all spellcasters, so sorcerers, warlocks, wizards. They also, as a sort of a secondary objective, are trying to close all the gates to the Feywild. So by defiling and killing all of the dryads and Fey and elves and stuff as well. So they're not exactly, I mean, they're sort of patterned after a little bit, and this is just because I needed some way to work this through, the Inquisition in Europe. But instead of it being Jewish and stuff like that, it's these particular kind of things. There is a sort of a secret behind all that sort of stuff, and some of that stuff is coming out in the other campaign, the Gears of Vengeance. But so we'll kind of talk about that more with that particular prep streams. But because he's doing that, he was directed to a wizard in Emerdal who could help him either to do a couple of things. One, learn to control his powers better, which he's already doing on his own because the being thrust into these various issues has forced him to learn how to use his stuff. And the second one is that could potentially connect him with other people who can help him. So there is sort of an arc that I've got there that I have an idea for moving forward. I just need to make sure that that's where they're going to go. Aaron, the warden, the half-elf warden, is looking for his father. What he doesn't know is that his father is actually the first mate of the high captain of the captain's table. And what's interesting is he also doesn't know that a couple of the other players know his father. Hilo, who was a castaway who was picked up by pirates initially a long time ago, actually was originally captured by pirates by Aaron's father before, and Aaron's father is the one that convinced the pirate to put them to just cast them away on the island in the first place. A long time ago, 15 years ago. So Hilo is kind of still trying to find himself. He's still a relatively young man, so his character development and plot I'm still kind of plotting out, but there is something that he doesn't know, which I kind of hinted at the last episode, which is that his father is not actually his father. His father is actually still alive and was a man that was a rival to who he thinks his father is. So that will come out more fully as time moves on, and we'll see what else we're going to do with that one. Rux, which is the Alec of the group, he wants to liberate his family. So his family, he comes from slavery. Most of the slavery is all on all around Calastria, so all around on these islands here, plantations and things like that. So he wishes to liberate his family from there. So he's kind of got that long-term goal. He needs to gather more allies and things of that nature and that sort of stuff. Now, if he were to show up at Calastria, I'm sure I could do some stuff with him there. So if they ended up stopping at Calastria, I would probably do a couple things with him in that spot. Praedyth. Praedyth is the Gnome Warlock in this game. He is being directed by the goddess of fate, Azura. Now, this one is sort of the DM Fiat kind of character. Same with Dresda, which we'll get to in a second. They're kind of the driving force behind the campaign, the overall campaign arcs. Things like more the old one and that sort of stuff. Now, I haven't made a decision yet about his character. At the end of the first arc, they all had nightmares about something that happened, and in his case, the nightmare was about him having a vision of the Mistress of Fate, Azura, being ripped apart by the Old One. I haven't decided if that actually happened yet or not, because the Old One's purview is dreams and visions. So that one I still have to decide. He has been given a vision of where to go to, of a place to go to learn more about Azura. Now, the question becomes, if I decide that really was Azura that sent him that vision, then he'll learn more about Azura. If it was the Old One that sent him that vision, because he is now taking the place of Azura, then, because he's ripped her apart, then he might learn more about Azura. He might learn more about something else, like something else that furthers the plot. So that one I have to think about as we move forward. So we'll see if they're going to go in that direction. Who else do we have? Dresda. Dresda is a binder. She binds with spirits. And so again, another DM Fiat. So I can utilize the spirits to tell her things and give her visions or that sort of stuff. So she is on she's been given a quest to find the Eye of Echoes. She has no idea what the Eye of Echoes is. I know what the Eye of Echoes is, and I'm not going to tell it in the stream yet because, again, players might actually be watching this, and that's a pretty big secret to the campaign that I want to keep under wraps for now. So she's got to figure out what that is. So the wizard might be able to help her there. So I think from that kind of dovetails nicely in with Ilas's particular thing. So we've done Ilas, we've done Aaron, we've done Hilo, we've done Praedyth, we've done Dresda, we've done Rux. Last and not least is Marcus. Marcus wants to just become the power behind the throne. His mother left when he was young. He was brought up by Sarah, who was, like I said, the leader of this Kraken cell in Caramagal, and the dock mistress, whatever you want to say it. So he sort of has learned that, there's power there, but he doesn't want to just be a lackey. He wants to be the one that's telling what people want to do. So he sort of wants to become, a kingpin of that sort of nature. So I haven't decided how that one's going to work yet. So I suspect that he's, again, just going to follow along. So I really feel that the next arc is going to be Emerdal and Ilas and Dresda a bit, and we'll see where it goes from there. Now I will throw some stuff in arcs and things like that, which is campaign movement in the sense of, at some point they might find a map somewhere that leads them to something that I need them to know about as far as learning more about the end goal of the campaign. But I'm not worried about that for now. All right. Now back on to Foundry. So I need to make True and Blimby. I tend to use Hero Forge for making tokens and stuff like that, and images and that sort of stuff. So as you can see here, I've got lots of different different ones. Some of them are characters that I've used in games, some of them are NPCs, some of them are actual monsters. You can see here I've made a bunch of different monster types. Sometimes I've tried some things that are weird just to try to see if I can make it. So this works really well for humanoid monsters, not so much for non-humanoids. I tried to make some fungal fungal creatures, this fungal queen, and the fungal warrior. They kind of worked. They didn't work as well as I wanted to. I've been working on some things for ghosts. So, you know, you make sort of a wholly white kind of token, and then you use Photoshop to kind of, you know, transparent it up and a few things like that. Add a little bit blue to it to kind of give it that sort of ghostly look. So I've been playing around with that a little bit. I'm not going to go into actually making Troon Blinby, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of, hey, here's the PCs from Gears of Vengeance. Here's the PCs from Red Skies. So there's two groups here, so you can see two groups of things. So this is what I kind of use for that. Do I need any maps for this particular one? I don't think so. I mean, I do need one map, which we'll make here real quick. I do need a map for the mutiny. So I do have like the sea spray already deck by deck, and you can see here some of them on there. And here's the main deck and things like that. I already have some of that, but I want one that is the full, all of it together. So let's quickly make one of those. So I wanted this one. So if I go into here and in the ships, I create a new one called Sea Spray All. Can't spell spray. Create a new scene. I've already photoshopped the image, so I'll have it. I do things. I tend to have all this stuff in modules, so I can load and unload it as I need to. Maps, Sea Spray Full is what I called it, and I'll just let it be what it will let it be. And for now, I will just save changes so we can view it. Save changes. What did I miss? Oh, yeah, I need to hit yes to that. And then it should be on here now. Here we go. So I can bring this up and you can see now. Here's the whole thing. Crap. I'm going to have to re-export this map because I accidentally left on my other grid. So this will be used for the mutiny portion so they can fight amongst it. The other group, I accidentally had because I'm trying to still get them off the island, I had the sea spray run aground after it had run into a bunch of Lacedons, and the Lacedons were all in the bottom here, and so trying to run a fight between multiple maps here in Foundry doesn't work very well. So I would rather do it all in one map here. So we'll have the one map that the fight will go on, so it can happen across multiple decks, and they can just move themselves across it. It's not a big deal. So that's one of the maps. That's the main map we really need for tomorrow. Another possible map is the Shoals and the Island of the Siren. Like I said, I don't know if I need that. Like, we can do Theater of the Mind for trying to navigate the Shoals, and at some point, sure, I should make sort of a map of the Shoals, especially if I were to ever like post this to somewhere or something like that. But for the session, I don't think I need that. It's more about how are you going to approach it, you know, Theater of the Mind it. If some people do go over the side and they want to go after them, then sure, the next session I will need a map of the area where the siren is, and I'll make one in that case. That is most of what I wanted to cover tonight. Actually puts me pretty much ready for tomorrow, other than making those making Blimby and True. Next one of these will probably be in a week. Unless we truly do finish tomorrow night. At the end of this arc, if we do get through the mutiny and everything, then we're taking a week off. We're gonna do something else for a week, so I can sort of plan, have them tell me at the end of the episode where they're headed towards next, and I can sort of plan in that direction. It's kind of hard sometimes with such a wide, like when they hit here, the paths become super, like tons of them. And so I need them to kind of narrow that focus down for me a little bit. But that being said, I will probably be doing, there will be one Friday, what Friday is it? There will be one on Friday, the 22nd, because my Gears of Vengeance one, for Gears of Vengeance, because that one runs on the 23rd. So that game goes on the 23rd. And some time between now and then, I will be doing my first world building stream where we'll kind of go over the world as it currently sits. The first several streams of that will be kind of going over the world as it currently sits and sort of the high level of what I have. The way I made the world is high level, but then drilled down to particular things. So Red Skies kind of deals with the Sea of Tears a lot, and because it's sort of open world, I'm going to have to drill in a lot of places. Whereas Gears of Vengeance deals with one small portion, one small area on Kelvin called Lake Tannel and the Tannel Vale. So we'll kind of go over that at some point in those things, and then sort of building out. I'm trying to then build out from that one. That's kind of it. Thanks for joining on my first stream of this. I hope everything works out pretty well with it, and I will try to maintain a pretty decent schedule with it. I mean, the whole point of this is to help me be more regular in my prepping for games instead of trying to prep right before, kind of do it the night before or the Sunday before. This one I did tonight, but I think it will probably mostly be on Sunday nights, just so I have more time to go through things and that sort of stuff. I feel like this one's a little bit truncated, even though it is about an hour long. The next one, if I wanted to go through making a map with you guys, then I would do that potentially, or at least, the ideas of it, that sort of stuff. And one of these will probably be how I'm setting up my VTT. I'm learning more and more about that every day as well. There's some spots where I feel we can do some automation that I haven't done yet, so that's the sort of the next step. So more of these streams will start to show up over the course of the next couple of months leading into the Christmas season. Both of these campaigns have been running for about a year now, so I'm late to the party on that. I do plan on doing a couple of streams that are the overarching plot of the campaigns. Players definitely stay away from those. That are really going to go into here's how I started out the campaign. Here's the arcs that I'm going through for it. There's side quests and things like that, because we'll go through that, because I want to do this now, and then at the end of every arc I reassess that original plan, where we're going to go next. Like, give you a preview. The very beginning of this entire campaign, I intended to have the big bad warlock guy that was going to be the right hand man of the old one, literally be on the ship with him from the start, by the name of Penvro. And that's changed now. He was on the ship, he was with them, but I don't know if he's going to be the main bad anymore. I have some other ideas for that. So that's kind of an idea of, like, depending on what happens in that arc, like the way that arc worked, like, he's still going to be someone, like, and I've sort of done this a little bit in the arc. He's still going to be a tool of the old one, but he just may not be the main tool. Something else may happen. So we'll talk about those in sort of an overarching one that I have. That's all I got for you guys today. Again, thanks for joining, and hopefully we'll see you in the next time. Have a good evening.